So we're in East Palestine. I'm here with Ashley. Ashley has been out putting up flyers on people's homes, and she's been directly affected by a lot of this herself. Fortunately, she's able to stay at least a little bit outside of town and to try to deal with all of this. But I guess first off, do you want to kind of explain what we're out here doing today with these signs?
I'm trying to reach people to see if they feel like Norfolk didn't do something that they could do to help and maybe draw attention to FEMA or anyone else that's coming into town to see that we still feel like there's something more that can be done. At this point, I can't even go in my house. I can't take my kids in the house. So I feel like they made a mess. And when you were younger, you were taught you need to clean it up. Mm-hmm. So that's basically where I am with them. And I heard a lot of other people's stories. They feel the same way.
Absolutely. And it seems like, a decent number of people are receptive to it. And then other people seem a little concerned about it in different ways. Do you want to just talk a little bit about how people are kind of responding to you doing this?
So far, I've got a lot of positive responses and a lot of stories, and I had a lady tell me she's lived here for 80 years. This is her home. She's raised her kids here. She has her grandkids come here, and she's not as worried because of her age, but she's upset to see the town like this. So I've been hearing a lot of heartfelt stories, and a lot of stories that are really tear-jerkers, so it's a bunch of different responses.
For sure. And then obviously we've got, while we were out here today, just now, we had one at least interesting response. Someone presumably from the railroad, they're wearing a vest, and came up and just put a phone in all of our faces and started recording. Yeah. Is this something you've seen happen other times as well? Or?
I've seen a car follow me. I wasn't too sure if they were, but the way that they were driving behind me and slowing down, watching where I was turning after the fact, I think it could have been. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I've lost everything else, so there's not much more I can lose other than my sanity, but I'm trying to keep intact on that one. Yeah. Everyone here has been really helping me with that. Them telling me their problems, I know I'm not in it alone, mm-hmm. and that's kind of how the town was before, and it's nice to see we're still coming together like that.
And then as far as, I know you've got a family and potentially pets and things like this. How has all of this kind of affected everyone? Is everyone doing okay health-wise, or what sort of things are we seeing there?
I had to take my kids out of school just because my son kept complaining of stomach pains. He said other kids in class had stomach pains. My daughter said it looked like everyone had pink eye. Her eyes were itchy. She was having a headache. She was dizzy. So I decided to pull both of them out, but it's kind of undetermined what I'm going to do after that because I only have a period of time that I can keep them out. Mm-hmm. My pets, they're doing relatively well except for my dog. He was really sick and going to the bathroom a lot.
The pink eye thing, we actually heard from a couple other people today that kids are going to school and they don't necessarily know that it's even if it's pink eye or if it's something, but it's something that looks like it, and they've only been in school for a period of time here. It seems like an odd thing to be spreading so quickly.
Yeah, and for everyone in the town to kind of experience that, it's a little bit odd. Mm-hmm. And the more we talk about it, you kind of realize, well, maybe I'm not the only one that's having a certain problem. I felt like I was under the influence whenever I left my house one day, and it was really odd. I've never felt like that, and I could tell people were driving a little bit weird. So I think everyone's kind of feeling that effect, and after I did reach out and talk to some people, they said, yeah, I'm feeling the same thing, and some people are uncomfortable to talk about it, but they shouldn't, because the more we talk about it, the more we know what is exactly going on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we've got lots of folks coming into town this week. Former President Trump's going to be here Wednesday. Aaron Brockovich is coming into town later this week. What are the residents' kind of reaction and your reaction to all of these folks now kind of starting to show up? Helpful, hurtful, a mix of both?
I think it should have been done a lot earlier, honestly. I think the way it was handled from the beginning was basically mass chaos and clutter. No one knew what was going on. No one knew what to do. And then the EPA pulled out of responsibility. Norfolk was left to it. And it still seemed like we didn't get those results. Right. But at least
the messaging
now,
seemed like it was all over the place too. Even just at the resource center or whatever this morning, where folks were getting, trying to get information, they're being told one thing one day, and then the next day it changes, and then another day it literally changes again. Yeah. And that seems to be the case too with things like the testing, and they're like, oh, the testing's good, and it's like, well, what were you testing for? Oh, don't worry about that. Like, it seems like people are pretty distrustful of the messaging that's being spread now because of how poorly it was handled early on. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah. And I research everything. I buy products and I coupon, so you kind of know what products to go with. And if you don't do your research, you're like, oh, well, my money's out on that. It's kind of like the same thing. If I get a free test and it doesn't do anything, what's the point in even getting it done? So I researched a bunch of other companies, and I went with a company that was honest and truthful. And they said, we can't test for all of them, but we can do the best test we can. I'll send it into a lab, and even my results came back higher than what they should have been. Right. And it's odd that everyone else's homes are okay.
Right. Yeah. I guess, what is your thoughts been on like the response from the federal government, right? I mean, it's taken forever at this point. We today, for the first time, just got a strongly worded letter from Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, whom railroads fall under. No talk of specific regulation changes or anything like that. Do you think that starts to happen at some point, or are all these people too tied in with railroad money to get anywhere? I don't know.
I'm not really sure with that. I wasn't a political person to begin with, and I mean, there are things that I've seen in the town way before this happened, like trains going too fast, overloaded. They have 3 different other trains pulling one 2-mile train, and they're going about 50 miles per hour in a residential area without blowing a horn. So that's kind of scary to me. And I think they should change the way that they label their tanks. Now, if the whole tank was yellow and the firefighters went to initially put out the fire, they would know water is going to make it worse. And that could have been the situation in the beginning. I'm not really sure. I just know I've never seen flames that high. And it was so intense for how bright and vibrant and large it was. It looked like it surrounded my whole house, all the way up and almost close into Pennsylvania for what it looked like.
Now that's crazy with all of this. One last question for you, I guess. So you have chosen kind of not to necessarily reach out to Norfolk Southern yet for assistance. Do you think that ultimately you'll be able to get anything from them? I mean, obviously, like, we're talking home values have fallen like crazy everywhere. No one's going to want to move into a lot of these homes at a certain point. People's lives are being upended, driving all over the place, keeping kids away, whether it's through, actually going and applying for things through them or through lawsuits at some point. Do you think that, East Palestine is going to be made whole at any point?
If we do, it's going to be in about 10 years. That kind of thing takes a very long time. And I know that I have no home because it is too unsafe. I mean, I'm in and out there, and it's too much. Like, you vomit when you're in there too long. You have numbness, tingling in your mouth. You taste it when you leave. I don't think I'll ever be able to get that out of my house or make it safe enough. And honestly, if I would try to sell my house, I have to disclose that to any buyer. Right. And that would be a very difficult time to do, to sell that with someone knowing. Yeah.
Absolutely. If there's anything else you want to share and get out there, feel free. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time. Yeah.
I would just say for everyone to share what's going on with them. If you want to share it and you feel like it's not that big of a deal, but you might help someone else that's going through that. And we really need to look at the schools and see if we should be sending our kids into something like that. If they're being sent home with red eyes, being sent to the emergency room after, having rashes, and they're only experiencing that at school, maybe they do need the school cleaned properly from an independent party.